If you're new to DAW programs, you may not be used to recording with a metronome, and I could give you about 100 reasons why it would be critical to learn to record with a metronome, but we don't have time for that. Instead, I'm going to tell you that if you want to quantize anything or work in a musical time display, you'll need to record to the metronome. If you don't, you'll never be able to do those two really important things. But the way that you configure Cubase can be a little bit different depending on whether you're using the control room or not. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's go to the Media tab and click on VST Instruments. And at the very top of the list, you should see Groove Agent SE. So I'll grab that and drag it over onto my very first measure here. That'll create an instance of Groove Agent SE. I'm going to load up the Empty Circles patch into Groove Agent SE, and that's a really nice sounding drum set. Then I'll close that control panel, I'll record enable the track, and then let's take a look at the transport panel. So I'm going to type F2 to bring that up. And as I mentioned before, the metronome is currently on and the pre-count is currently on. If you don't see both of those controls, click on that little vertical ellipse until you see both of those buttons. Because the first one is the on and off for the metronome, the keyboard shortcut for that is C, and then the pre-count is on. The pre-count will give you a specified number of measures for free before the recording actually engages. So make sure that both of those are on. And then I'm going to close that, and I'm going to record with the metronome on. So I'm going to hit the record button, and I'll start to record something. There's my first measure for free. I'll start recording on 2 instead. Now let's play that back. That's not really in time, so if I wanted to quantize that, I could hit my Q button, and now let's take a listen to it. See, now it's nice and in time, so that's one of the main reasons that you'd want to use the metronome. But the metronome is working for me right now because I'm using my control room. You may not be using the control room. Let me show you the differences. If I go under the Studio menu and choose Audio Connections, I'm going to go to the Control Room tab and turn it off. So that will disable my control room. Then when I go to my Outputs tab, I'll need to make sure that I choose my first stereo output on my audio interface. And now when I hit record, I should be able to hear the metronome. Yep, I can hear the metronome. I can turn the metronome off just by hitting the C key on my computer keyboard. See, so we're still recording, but now the metronome is off. Typing C again will re-engage the metronome. So when you're using the standard stereo outputs, the metronome is a piece of cake. You just turn it on and it goes. But if you're using the control room, it can be a little bit more challenging. Let's go back to Audio Connections. The keyboard shortcut for that is F4. And I'm going to reroute my stereo output to the control room instead. So on my first monitor bus right here, I'm going to want to choose the Steinberg UR28M or whatever your audio interface will appear right here, and then choosing the main left and right output. And then if I hit the record button, let's see if we're able to hear the metronome. Ah, we are. But that will depend on if you have the metronome enabled in your control room. If you don't hear the metronome right now when you hit record, you'll need to engage that in the control room. So let's go to the meter here and then hit the control room button to make sure that we have revealed that in our right zone here. And you'll see this little button. This is the Activate Metronome click for the control room, which is separate than the click for Cubase. But typing C will enable and disable both. You just won't see it disabled here in the control room. And then I have a separate level control and a pan control for the metronome, which is a really nice thing about doing it with the control room because you could change the level and you can change the panning of the metronome. So if you wanted it in the left channel or in the right channel, or anywhere in between, you can do that. And to further customize your metronome, you can go to the Transport pull-down menu and go to Metronome Setup. And here you can activate or deactivate the metronome. I think it's a lot easier to use the C key on the keyboard. You can choose to use a MIDI click or an audio click or both. I have both selected right now. I just don't have a destination for where the MIDI click would play from. So that's okay to leave that on if you don't have it configured. But then the click options below will change. Right now I have mine to click while I'm recording, but not while I'm playing back, because I don't want to hear the metronome when I'm playing back. But you could enable that if you wanted to have that feature active. And then I do have the click during count in enabled. That's why I get one measure for free, but the default is actually 2 bars for free. So here I have mine set to 1. Yours may be set to 2 by default, but you can configure it to any number of count-in measures you'd like. So that's the metronome. Next, let's talk about tempo and time signature.